South Kingstown Town Council is March 15th. Time is 4:02. I think we should probably do things as we normally do. If everybody would stand and pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We don't have any official agenda to read off of, but if the clerk will please take the roll.
Council President Collins.
Here.
Council Vice President Cruz.
Here.
Councilwoman Kelso.
Here.
Councilwoman McEntee.
Here.
Councilman Bailey.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. And so the purpose of today's meeting is to discuss our local response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have a declaration of emergency that the town manager has provided to us. I think I'll just read it for the record. I think that makes sense. So this says, Ordinance 2020-X, Declaration of Emergency. Pursuant to Section 3214 of the South Kingstown Home Rule Charter, the Council hereby declares the existence of an emergency. The basis for the Council's emergency declaration is the danger to health and life posed by the novel coronavirus known as COVID-19, as set forth in Governor Gina Raimondo's Executive Order 20-02, dated March 9th, 2020, declaring a state of emergency, and Executive Order 20-03, dated March 13th, 2020, containing a supplemental emergency declaration. Based upon this local declaration of emergency, the following licenses, permits issued under Chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances are hereby revoked. No new licenses shall be issued. Dance, bingo, carnival, motion picture theater, temporary mass gathering. Additionally, for all license types, license holders are restricted from serving or gathering more than 100 patrons at a time. All non-essential public meetings will be canceled and rescheduled. The Council hereby delegates the authority to the town manager to take any and all actions deemed necessary to address the ongoing emergency. The town manager shall report actions taken pursuant to this emergency declaration to the Council and to the public as soon as practicable, including ongoing updates on the town's website. This ordinance shall take effect immediately and remain in full force and effect until April 15th, 2020, unless renewed, modified, or terminated by a subsequent ordinance.
So, Mr. President, this ordinance, or this draft ordinance, is exactly what the town solicitor office prepared for us yesterday when we asked them in response to a call by the governor for these sorts of local emergency ordinances to be put in place. It's also identical to the ordinance that the town solicitor's office produced for the other municipalities for which that firm works. I understand that Bristol and Barrington have already enacted the ordinance, and I would ask for your consideration. Before you vote, though, I think it probably makes sense for us to get an update from Craig Stanley and sort of give us a sense of where we are at this point.
Good afternoon. We haven't had any cases in the town of South Kingstown I'm aware of through the 911 system. I know of no one that's being tested at this time. It is my recommendation that we reduce that number. I think the government, the Trump administration is looking at doing a 14-day reduction of business throughout the country. I think they're discussing that now. I think 100 is too many. I think we need to go with 10 or less. I know that's a tremendous impact on the economy and businesses, but I feel we need to do the greatest good for the masses. And if we can work other arrangements for restaurants to deliver, I think that would be a better suitable option. But from my standpoint, I think the 100 is too high.
I'm sorry, Craig, to clarify, you recommending 10?
Yes, that's my recommendation, 10 or less.
And there are 0 cases in South Kingston?
Correct, that I know of in South Kingstown, there's 0 cases, correct.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, this ordinance would establish 100 as the baseline. If we found, or if there were called by the state to go to a lower number, allow us to do that without any further action. We just follow with the state if they reduce that number from 100 to 25 or 50 or 10 or whatever it is. So we're not tying our hands, we're not tying ourselves to 100 at this point. We are simply saying we start there, and if we need to modify, we will.
All right, thoughts up here about the 100 number, or?
As you know, we're all very pro-business, and it's concerning that it's going to affect a lot of businesses, but I've given it a lot of thought and other information that I have that I feel strongly in agreement with Craig Stanley, with the number of 10.
Can I ask another question, Craig? Statewide, the number of confirmed cases as of last report?
Yeah, this morning I have 20 that's being reported. I believe 250 are in quarantine.
2,300.
2,300.
Sorry,
2,300 are in quarantine.
2,300
Yes.
in quarantine or around?
Right.
Right, but 20 confirmed cases.
Correct. As of yesterday.
And I think the data that I also heard was that 19 of them were of no problem without being hospitalized. So it seems to me that this may be an overreaction to the conditions that exist. I think that if there are 20 confirmed cases, 2,300 quarantines certainly is a big number, but within 1 million people, I don't think it's that big a number. The other point that I think I could make is that do you have a sense for the mortality rate or the at-risk populations?
Well, I know that the numbers are doubling every 3 days. My concern is the state of Rhode Island is the square miles. We're a small state, we're heavily dense. We have an elderly population here, pretty significant, and that's my concern. We have 6 nursing homes here, which we're responding to, and we're utilizing proper precautions for that. I'm just concerned of the ripple effect of this. And as I say, the government is looking to do a 14-day cut of business. I think that's what they're looking at just within the hour.
And Joe, the other thing I would add is the governor is looking at changing that number relatively soon. They just haven't as of yet. The biggest thing for me is that I know the number seems small right now, but if we don't take action, I don't want to be responsible or have it on my conscience if we don't do what we can right now to kind of take the connection away. And that's the biggest issue. But the other issue is that the state can only test 100 people per day. So they're not.
And we know when the testing increases, the cases will increase. We know.
Yeah, and that's a big handicap because we don't have enough testing. So physicians and ERs are having to determine who's going to get the most that's going to get tested. So my thought is we probably have a lot more cases out there that we do not know of.
Right.
We have a very susceptible population here in South Kingston.
And in my opinion, there have probably been people that have been to the ERs that have gone home to come back and realize that they had, potential. Or being looked at or presumptive in that case.
Right. Or what happened in December and the virus has run its course and they're home.
There's a lot we don't know for sure.
Right.
Craig.
The folks who were writing about this, the national CDC and the folks from Rhode Island Department of Health indicate that asymptomatic cases are still likely transmitting disease. So we probably have a portion of the population that doesn't know it's carrying, that is out and about. These ordinances, this approach is designed to deal with that class of people as well as the symptomatic who shouldn't be out and about. At any rate, if you're feeling sick, you shouldn't be out and you shouldn't be at a restaurant or a bar. However, there's plenty of folks who are not showing any symptoms who may still be carrying the virus. That's the concern.
Right, and yesterday I drove down Main Street and I was surprised, no fault of the business, but I was just surprised at how many people were standing outside a local business. And today, a brewery in town had a lot of people at the brewery, and that's another concern. It's not a time to be on vacation, party, it's a time to stay home. It's hard to stay home, don't get me wrong, and you gotta probably get a little crazy and stir crazy, but that is the best thing that folks can do.
The more people we have together, the greater the chance. And the spread of this has just been phenomenal. When we start seeing cases in South Dakota, that concerns me.
So I'd like to see us stay in line with the governor's directive. It's a small state, so we can put in place 10 people, but Narragansett won't, or Charlestown won't. I think we should stay in line with the governor's directive, follow the Department of Health. I'm in full support of the 100 people, or I did see another community saying half the amount you normally would be able to accommodate to keep the social distancing factor in play. So it's, half the amount of people in the business, which seems sensible to me, because we can say 100 people, but if the business only seats 50, they're still going to be full, right? So that defeats the entire purpose to me. But I really am in favor of backing up the governor's directives, and if we need to break the virus chain somehow, and it seems to be social distancing will be the only way to do that.
I think that that's an important point about the establishments that waxed out and get to 75 people. Capping at 100 isn't good in that circumstance. There's a way to word the ordinance so that we can capture that.
We do have people in self-quarantine in South Kingstown, but we have no cases that I know of COVID-19.
You could limit it to 1/2 of the fire marshal's capacity.
Or a maximum of 100.
So just another point away from the governor's order. I think today, she closed the daycare centers for the week, child care centers across the state. That will push so many young people into grandparents' homes tomorrow, and those are the people at risk. And the elderly much more, I think, and I'm going to take your advice on this, but in my opinion, the elderly more than even the toddlers. But that part of the directive from the state, to me, makes the situation worse. It not only closes businesses, but then it puts people who may be carriers at 3 or 3.5 years old in somebody's home that's 75 years old.
So I don't think the governor's making the directives of her own initiative. I think she's probably taking the advice of the Department of Health. So that's where I have faith in the governor's directives.
I certainly believe the governor is taking good directive and a good lead on this matter. I think it's, on municipalities to follow her lead. I agree with this ordinance. I think a 100-person limit is what we should do at this point in time. And if this ordinance allows us to get in line with, changes that occur that the governor has decided, I think we should pass this. I think this is a fluid situation. I don't think we can limit, people in establishments to 10 at this point in time, because surrounding towns are not doing that. People will go out of town if they can't stay in town, if outside towns are allowing that. I think the governor is taking a good lead, and I think we need to follow her directive. I support this ordinance, and I think we should make it effective immediately.
Rob, what could we do in terms of, say hypothetically the governor comes up with a different number later today or tomorrow morning? This will allow that to go and coincide with that?
The council hereby delegates the authority to the town manager to take any and all actions deemed necessary to address the ongoing emergency. If the governor reduces that number, I would deem it necessary to reduce the number locally and
I mean,
notify the police.
the other thing, I think in either Connecticut or right over the line in Rhode Island, there was a young person, someone under 18, who contracted the virus by simply getting an autograph from an NBA player. So, did not shake the NBA player's hand. The concern is the virus can potentially live on surfaces. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's 7 to 9 days, and then within there, 3 hours. And again, my concern is the spread. Obviously, the data is showing that young people are able to do well with the disease, but the elderly population, it really gets hard. And still, my concern is the people that are healthy that may get the disease, of moving that around the town and the community.
Greg, you said federal administration is considering a 2-week blanket.
14 days of business closing. Yeah.
So that would be any non-essential business basically
Correct.
closing up shop.
city of Boston has closed its bars and restaurants.
Ireland has closed their bars and pubs.
So, one question, I mean, at 10 people, I feel like at that point, a business isn't viable, or a restaurant. You're gonna have essentially that many employees, and you're not gonna be turning any profit, serving that many. I like the idea of potentially, delivering food to people, because I think people still do need those services.
So why don't we not include employees? We just don't have to include employees in the number.
Even so, I think 10 customers. I just wonder, from the perspective of business owners, we have some business owners here in the audience, so maybe they'll be able to give us some advice. Does it make more sense just to have a clear directive and shut it down, and that way they have something to tell their employees, they have something to tell their customers?
So my thought on this, and that's why we're here today as opposed to doing this tomorrow night, the idea of making sure that we could give folks a heads up before the holiday was important. My thought on this is that the governor has at her disposal the best people in the state to evaluate our circumstances. The advice coming through the governor's office is probably the best advice available to us. So if they're still at 100 at this moment, we should be at 100 would be my recommendation. If they go to 10 or closure, we should follow suit.
Yeah, I hear the 100 number from the governor. I also watched her press conference, and she's telling people they shouldn't go to the bar or restaurant. So it's sort of mixed messages in a way in that respect. Anyway, conversation.
I'll just reiterate my point. I don't see the 100 number being viable. I see half being viable. But again, if you see 500 people, half the number should be okay, I mean, the objective here is to not put people shoulder to shoulder. That's the objective, right?
6 feet away.
Right. So enough space in any establishment is really what needs to occur. So I'm not in favor of 10 because the state has not directed that. And all we're going to do is drive customers to another community. And no one's going to be safer because of that. The point here is safety. So I don't want to drive people from South Kingstown businesses to Narragansett or anywhere else. Those folks aren't going to be safer if the directive isn't statewide. So I say we follow the governor, although I've got a bit of an issue with the 100 people because, again, I'm going to say the same thing again. If a business seats 50 and there's 50 people in there, they're still closed. I say we go with the governor's directive because she's got the best resources. We don't have a department of health in South Kingstown. So I say we back up the governor's directive.
Any other comments on this ordinance? Any other portions beyond after we're done discussing it?
I may have something to say too.
I think that we're all hoping for the best, but we have to plan for the worst. And I think that's the key message that we have to remember. This is uncharted territory. We've never had, that I can recall, a national emergency. I don't remember the last time we had a state emergency. This can affect so many people, and I know that potentially older people are more susceptible. But it doesn't really matter how old you are in terms of contracting this particular virus. And there's so many unknowns that even if we put this into effect for a week, it can help stop the potential spread.
Well, I mean, again, I think based on the conditions that we know, and I get that the governor has is pretty much more information. This is risky to our business owners. I think that they're challenged right now because their attendance is down just by the conditions. We drive by some of the normal places that you go by every day, and I don't want to name places, but on Kingstown Road, on Main Street, and there's half as many cars. You walk into the place and there's half as many people. It's sort of self-policing at this point. And besides the business owner, I really have to consider, and this is a big one, all the staff. The staff is already hurting, so the wait staff is seeing less tip income right now without this ordinance. They're seeing less tip income. So some wait staff get sent home, so the rest can make a decent pay. The kitchen staff is going to get about the same pay, but make no mistake, somebody's going to get sent home. Those people have to pay rent in 2 weeks. And I think if we hammer the last nail in, there's a potential to make these owners and staff who are already marginalized seriously injured. I understand that the whole public good has to be considered. I would argue that this is unprecedented over the years. We have had many, the flu this year took many lives, and the mortality rate of this to this point, even in the countries where it has been awful, the flu is worse. Nobody wants to be the one victim, I get that, and we should do everything we can. We also have to find a balance of not overreaching. We've got to remember that there are rights involved here.
Joe, I'm a capitalist just like you, and the last thing I want to do is hurt any business in town. This virus is not only hurting restaurants and bars, it's hurting other companies like real estate companies as an example. Pretty much every business is going to be touched by that. Your retirement accounts are being affected right now by it. So like I said, I'm a capitalist, and I'm all about trying to make money and to people to support themselves and supporting business owners. But I honestly feel that we do have to take a dramatic step right now.
My only point is that I think the ordinance could hurt them more, right? I do agree.
I agree with you.
The conditions are already hurting.
Nobody wants to hurt anyone.
Mr. President, just a point of clarification on the Boston case. Boston, in the bars and restaurants that have closed in Boston have done so voluntarily. The mayor's executive order actually says they must reduce capacity by 50% and close no later than 11 o'clock at night. That's the Boston model.
Any further comments? So this is an ordinance that we're considering. We do have members of the public here who are interested in what it says, so I welcome any comments from those here on what we're discussing. In particular, one thing that we've discussed up here is the number of folks in the establishment that we'd be looking to allow. Of course, the governor's at 100 right now. Do people think that that's all right? Councilman Kelso has suggested 50% of the capacity that's allowed by fire marshal. I think that seems a pretty reasonable proposition as well. So if you have thoughts on that matter, I'd be happy to entertain those as well.
If you come up,
First come, first served, state your name.
if you come up to the podium, I suggest not touching it or touching the mic, please.
Kevin Finnegan, wishing this here for you. I think we're gonna piece it together. I'm following the governor's lead, follow your lead. React, but don't overreact. It's not a hurricane; it's more than a hurricane. But I think we've all, Perry, Dave, Danny, rest. I don't open for hurricanes to make a buck. I don't open for hurricanes to make a profit. Mainly, it's like keep people in the tunic. They don't have to drive to Wakefield. People in Wakefield don't have to drive to Providence. You kind of mentioned that. It's kind of like, close down if we have to. You got our phone numbers. Call me or whatever. I'm not speaking for everybody, but we're open for almost like a private public service. So people in the tunic don't have to. If you close us down, 100's good. Goes down to 50, good. But if you close them down, then you have more people at Stop and Shop. More people, going someplace else maybe. I just looking at my own little tunic down there where people like snowshoe Matunic in the winter on a snowstorm or a hurricane, so that's the input I got from Matunic. But if you say call me up right away, or whoever calls, we'll go from 100 to 50. We're just basically, man, we were at 250 before, we already put it at 150, because we kept the table, we had not having a day in YD at 250. So we did all that, and Terry, Daniel, curbside service, we were just like reading things like you are, we're learning as we go here, this is like bigger than a hurricane, big, but we kind of been halfway through this like you guys have been. So is this something you want from us?
Tell me about your employees, like, what's happening with them?
Oh, we're versatile, you know, I think, you shouldn't worry about the money so much, it's kind of like, you know, we all want to work, we're all safe, we're actually, you know, all restaurants are probably one of the cleanest places, because they're always, you know, 2-3 times a day, they're ripping kitchens apart, doing stuff, you know, spraying tables. The employees, I guess, you know, I see, you know, it's not a money thing, but I think the money's coming when this is over in a week or a month. You know, they're already talking about the service industry and the state, how important it is. So I you know, we pulled our pays out already. We've been through this where I couldn't pay people before. My employees trusted me. I think Perry's, Dave's, Danny's, who've been, you know, they're all 10, 20, 30-year veterans of being in business. Is that the question you're asking?
Yeah, I just wanted to make, to see what accommodations are being made. Kids are out of school, right? So you have employees that have children. So, I think we all have to address those things, right? How are we going to take care of the children when school's not in session and you've got, kitchen help that needs to be there at noon?
We
right?
prioritize. So we prioritize during a hurricane, I'm single, I'll work 10 hours, who's looking at our kids. We got 237 employees, so it's kind of like, who's got nothing to do. It's usually a snowstorm is like, oh, I live close by, I have a 4-wheel drive, or he does or she does, and we get through that moment, and we're doing the same exact thing.
I think we're all just worried that, not only that the businesses survive the stress, but that your employees also have some kind of,
I think you should stay open, like, take somebody's lead, and rather than 10 different leads, the governor says 100, stick with it. Stay open is keep the hours, I get the 50, sorry, I'm a bigger place, so 100 to me, whatever, but I get it if you're a 50-person room, I get that point, so that's your decision, but don't worry about my employees. I'm balanced enough where I'm taking care of them, and vice versa, they're taking care of me. And then I think Perry could say the same, I think David and Andy could say the same, I say, and then working with the police, it's like it's not, they can come, you tell them, they tell me, you call me directly, it's a tight enough town to with Providence, I guess they might have to jump a little bit, because, you get so many bars and restaurants, some people might be not doing the right thing or not, I have no idea, but, I think down here you're pretty.
Chairman, what's your capacity?
247.
So you would still be at 100 with.
Yeah, I don't reach that point, but I think I'm, again, if you guys disagree, but, we're following the lead, we're not, but I just want to, actually, I've never seen it, everyone was complimentary of Perry and Dave and Danny, but there's, why business is open, I think some people reaction can cause more problems, so just, by overreacting. So I think they've been seeing this coming, and they kind of, turning nuts now, or whatever, hopefully we're ahead of the curve of what Italy and, different places,
So what I'm thinking now, listening to you, is 100 maximum or half of your.
Yeah, if you were half is half would say my half
Right, so if we
capacity.
go to half of your capacity, your fire capacity, or up to 100, that might address the concerns with the 50-person room, right?
You guys are all big capacities, right?
Yeah,
Total.
not everybody is,
Yeah.
there's a little.
That's, 100's 100, I get what you're saying, 100,
Right, up to 100, half of your capacity for up to 100.
yeah, that seems to fulfill
Right.
both needs and
Right.
that makes sense. It's just, and any snowstorm, hurricane, that's small, but it's the same implicating what you do with my customers, my employees, myself, or whatever, where I see Perry doing it, I've known David and Danny longer, in the sense of how they just turn the lights on and, put the lights inside the body, keep the lights on, whatever it is, there's always a public service in a strange sense of all right, we're not worried about it. Or, a bunch of people in a snowstorm driving, till they buy, you know, a different topic even costs money, right? What else? Good read, questions?
Any other comments?
Has there been any direction from the town medical doctor?
Have we received anything further from the medical
Yes, he
director?
recommends isolation.
Isolation of what?
He recommends this.
Recommends.
Yes.
Has he recommended, come on up to the mic. Town's medical director has recommended doing what?
Yeah, he has recommended the reduction to 10, just based on reading. And the thing is that my concern is if we look at this in a week, 2 weeks, the bell is wrong.
All right, so could I hear, in addition to whatever, obviously you offer what you want as public comment, but what a 10-person limit would do for business, what do you think you're doing as a person?
Dave Rogers from News Tavern. One of the things we want to find out too is, are you including employees in this as a occupancy number?
It says patrons, so it's 100 patrons.
Yeah, okay. You know, like Kevin reiterated, of course, we're all about the public safety, we're all about following the lead and doing that. I think somewhere in between the idea of 50% of room capacity and up to, you know, or fire code capacity and then up to 100 limit. My feeling is that we're all putting in a lot of effort, and you guys are great for coming in and taking care of this on Sunday. I have a feeling this is gonna get tighter on the national level and the state level pretty quick. So I'm in favor of following the governor's lead and not jumping the gun on it, because I think it's gonna come down anyways. Especially if the bell curve keeps going up like a hockey stick up and to the right, you know, we know that's gonna be stricter. My feeling is somewhere in the middle there or at that level, what you propose and going up to what the governor and the state and the people that have the knowledge and understand that. We're grappling with trying to also be in the public service business of we're installing an app tomorrow to get curbside pickup, to keep people, you know, so get a zip line for the food out of the kitchen, out of the people in the car, you know, whatever we gotta do to still provide that service. You know, and if you have the ability to do that, you mentioned employees. You know, employees are not freaked out about taking out the kids, at least ours are. They're freaked out about not working. And, you know, mandatory holidays. So, you know, we're working, George and I have already set up sort of a fund to, you know, bridge loan employees and keep going. Try to figure out what's going to be the best way, whether everybody's going to be part-time or everybody's going to be, you know, down. So if we can keep the kitchen there, we screen the kitchen employees every morning, making sure that they're healthy, ready to be there. Anybody, we're telling them, you know, our own policies, you're not the doctors, but if you call in, we've gotten rid of that. You know, just stay home, don't come to work. So we, of course, would like to stay open as long as we can, be a service, and, you know, not contribute to the problem. We understand you guys are in a tough situation.
So Dave, can you give me your capacity and how many employees you have?
327. 327, we have 105 employees. But at any given time, you know, at full capacity, about 27 to 35.
Right. And 105 people rely on you for their livelihood.
So, and you know, we know you're not in an easy spot. But again, I think the powers that be that are up in the state house and then the federal government level, you know, are gonna tighten this news up if we don't see some movement pretty quick. So,
Thanks.
thanks.
Thank you.
Dave, if you wouldn't mind, sorry. Did you have any thoughts about, if we set a number at 10, if the town looked at that, you know, in the coming days, say that.
I mean, that's pretty much close.
Okay.
You know, I mean, you're talking big chain restaurants, you know, Five Guys or Moe's or, you know, those guys that you know, don't have that seating capacity to come in and hang out.
So, you know, in that circumstance, would you rather just have the directive to be closed, or would you like it to say 10? Or
We'd like to stay open as long as possible, you know, and provide the service. I mean, if it's 10, it's 10. I
it's, you know, we tell them it's 10, and they're like, we can't just, we're voluntarily closing the operation because we can't profit at 10. It's a different.
We've seen no guidance yet on unemployment eligibility at this point, but if the employees are unavailable because of circumstances beyond the employer's control, they will be eligible.
And the 10-person capacity, I'm not sure what that would even be for.
It would pretty much be for McDonald's, right?
Yeah, and then, what if
Any sit-down restaurant it's not feasible, I understand.
Now it's gonna be 2 in, 2 out, or.
Right.
Amy Reiner, Director of Administrative Services. I do want to address the unemployment aspect. The Department of Labor and Training does have primarily on their website information about folks whose hours are impacted or who are laid off due to this. There's a great fact sheet that talks about whether it's impacted because of your hours or closure, or if you do have coronavirus. So if you go to the Department of Labor and Training's website, it's right there, it's a big red box, there is information. So I recognize that it might not be all of the wages that someone might realize, but if a business is closed or if they are reducing hours or limiting different employees, there are some resources available in the state.
Seasonal businesses, restaurants in particular, in this, in South County, the employees have always utilized partial unemployment, right? So, you try to keep your staff through the winter, and everybody got 25 hours instead of 40 or 60. So partial unemployment is something that's been utilized in the industry for a very long time.
The other thing I just want to bring up, we're talking, like right now we're talking affecting a lot of bars and restaurants, but there are other places in town, like gyms, the Y, that I think we need to also take action on.
Right, so the numbers, I think, just apply the same way. They are trying to, regardless of what, the reason why people are gathering. So if you're the Y, you have a maximum capacity of, I don't know, 200 people, you get to have 100, or if your capacity is 150, you get to, maybe half the capacity. So we're just trying to keep everybody safe and sorted from each other.
Just add a couple things. Is this, there's probably a big concern about St. Patrick's Day and being overflow, so that's what's brought us here on Sunday, right?
Right.
So, asking if we do this ordinance, is it more about St. Patty's Day, or is this about carrying forward? And then, can we also find out, is this gonna be a weekly renewal ordinance? Is this gonna be, how are we gonna make sure that we're on the right side of the curve taking this off as well?
So the wording here says it will remain in effect until April 15th, so come on.
So, I think that's a long time not known.
Well, it also says or terminated.
Right.
There's more to that sentence. April 15th isn't the stop.
So I do think that's an important point. What's being contemplated here isn't just a St. Patrick's Day intervention. This is an intervention designed to flatten the curve. We've all seen this story. And it's going to take time. This is going to be weeks. Whether the restriction on numbers of occupants in bars and restaurants lasts weeks, we don't know at this point. But it is more likely that it will be more than a week, and it's certainly more than St. Patrick's Day.
Bob, is that what you've been hearing on the governor's calls?
It's what all of the information we've seen from all open sources is indicating. I mean, we've seen Italy alone and closed now for how long? I mean, it's been quite some time.
Right. And in Italy, they don't have enough respirators.
Any other public comment at this time? All right. So, any thoughts? No.
I'd like to stick with the ordinance that we've had written up. I think it makes sense to follow the governor's direction. I believe she's got the best resources around her to evaluate the situation, which is very fluid and is changing rapidly. I think if this ordinance allows the town manager to reduce this number as necessary as the governor deems it, I believe that this is good for us. I don't think we should reduce it down to 10. I think that'll have, too much of a drastic effect on businesses in town. Obviously, it's extraordinary times, but, I think what is in front of us now is what we should, enact immediately.
I feel that we're elected to protect businesses and the public, and based off of Craig Stanley, our EMS director's conversation with our medical director, at the number of 10, that's what I would support.
And Deb, you next?
So I still feel pretty strongly that the flat 100 number is not realistic for us. I think it should be half your fire capacity or 100-person max, whichever is.
I'm sympathetic to that viewpoint. Certainly, I think the one size fits all of 100 just doesn't make sense in some circumstances. So I'd definitely be supportive of Deb's change to the language. I think Brian is probably right on this is what's recommended by the professionals who are advising us who are town employees. In general circumstances, we take that as sorry.
But the neighboring towns,
Right.
then we've got an issue.
We can't control neighboring towns, and maybe we can hope that they do act responsibly.
So I see all those sides to it. I think Deb, your solution is sort of a middle ground. I don't know. If you'd like to make the motion to amend it.
So do we need a motion first to, on the ordinance itself, and then what do we need here?
Can I ask some questions on this? Are you suggesting the lower of half of capacity or 100?
No, I'm suggesting your maximum capacity would be half of your fire marshal deemed number, right?
Yep.
Or 100-person maximum. So
Okay,
if your capacity is 250, you can still only have 100.
Or 125?
No,
So it's the lower
or
of.
100-person maximum, right?
Okay.
So half of your, so if the fire marshal says you can have 150 people, you can only have 75. But if the fire marshal says you can have 250 people, you can only have 100. Right, so 100 is the maximum capacity, but it stops the much smaller establishments that have 50 people capacity from packing people in.
How would this apply to churches?
It would apply to, I believe it would apply to any.
So how does the church limit who's allowed to worship?
Excuse me. If you have a question, just for the record, if you could come to the microphone and state it.
You gotta go to the mic to ask that.
So how does the church decide who they limit on worshiping?
Could you state your name, please, first?
Justin
Justin,
Casey, actually.
thank you.
So
So this ordinance does not deal with licenses that a church would have. I don't know that there is a license that you give to churches. The governor's guidance is that you shouldn't be attending church during this period of time. The public health official's guidance is it's not safe to congregate in mass at this point. So there's a voluntary element to that. It's not mandatory. We can't break up church gatherings, but it is not safe to be congregated.
So what about private gatherings?
This actually, if it's a private gathering that would receive a mass gathering license, no license will be issued under this ordinance, and the gathering would be in violation of our licensing requirements if it were held without a license.
So does anybody think maybe closing all the restaurants in town is going to cause more panic to the grocery stores? And that cause more people in rooms with more people? These guys are providing services. Whether people are congregating at a party or not, and then the food in this town is a major issue with the grocery stores already. So I think causing more panic
to you about, like CVS, that's what this is, CVS and the entire chain on the corner.
So the licenses that CVS has, Susan, what would CVS have for a license?
Yes, I'm sure they have.
Holiday license?
Sunday holidays.
They do not need
Yeah.
pharmacy license.
So again, none of their licenses would be covered by the ordinance.
Do we now grant them a Sunday and holiday?
They do.
So that would be covered.
That's the only license that they would have that they would be required to get from us, so.
Those are,
Holiday sales license.
but those are,
Rental purpose necessity.
Those are not listed as.
Licenses that are
Again,
required
same
in
thing with,
gas stations, other necessities.
there wouldn't be that many people there. I'm concerned about gyms. So what licenses, again, would be a Sunday and holiday license for a gym? What where they fall on?
No, they don't have holiday sales licenses for retail sales.
So gyms are open on Sunday under what direct?
Because they don't require to have a license, they're not selling it in a retail, like, store.
Are you licensed by the state?
I'm not certain.
Not that I know of,
The
actually.
Department of Health license.
From the health department.
Department of Health license.
There, in the next clause, it does say, for all license types, license holders are restricted from serving or gathering more than 100 patrons at a time. So they don't have any type of license for license types, that's correct. But they don't hold any license from the town.
but does the movie theater have a license as an example?
Yes.
Yes. And so, the president is correct. So the second paragraph revokes certain licenses and restricts all licenses that have not been revoked. So,
Can you read that, please?
So, based upon local declaration of emergency, the following license permits issued under Chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances are hereby revoked. Those licenses are dance, bingo, carnival, motion picture theater, temporary mass gathering. The next clause, though, states that additionally, all license types are restricted from serving or gathering more than 100 persons at a time.
So, in order to operate a business in town, you need a license, don't you, technically? No?
Now, if you don't, on a Sunday or a holiday, you could have a retail license with just a state retail, tax stamp and not open on a Sunday or a holiday.
I checked Riverbend's website just for information just a short time ago, and they said, big coronavirus notices, and they are limiting their classes this week, and only certain ones are going to be held. Very minor schedule compared to what they normally have, and they probably will change it as the year passes. They may close off the exercise equipment rooms, just for people touching it, even though they have full big gloves to clean it off with.
I'm sure many people will be doing this voluntarily.
So health clubs and counties just let me know that the health clubs and funeral homes are being addressed by the state.
With the 100 person?
I don't know how the state's proposing to address that.
Well, I think in the case of the restaurants, the conditions are already limiting probably to what is being proposed here. I know that 4 or 5 places that I went in yesterday that had around 12 to 12:30 o'clock. The attendance was way down in a lot of them, so I think a lot of what you're trying to solve with this ordinance is being done. At least in the cases of hospitality.
Back to our motion there.
I was curious about that. I did see that, Stone, did you have any public comments to add? I invited public commentary before you got here. I don't know if you had anything.
Yeah,
Want to come to the mic, please?
Sure.
Don't touch
occur in the middle of Sunday. It's a rare chance I'm going to get away to be here on a Sunday. But the reality is, like Councilman Dewey said, people are already limiting their own activities. We've seen somewhat of a decline marker in business throughout the coronavirus, episode that the world's experiencing right now. So I don't know if what kind of good is going to come from additional ordinances banning the regular businesses that are able to get that, get that amount of attendance, that are going to be able to keep their employees afloat, and keep them from putting further stress on the town's welfare systems. So I do appreciate you guys letting me get up here and comment.
What is your capacity?
You know what? I don't want to comment on it just because I don't know off the top of my head our fire code number. But I will say that our capacity for the indoor range, we have 16 lanes. Maximum would be two shooters per lane. Other than that, for our outdoor facilities, we have 125 acres that people are spread over 16 stations. I don't think that's a huge concern. I would be surprised if we generally saw it. I don't think, for example, that we would be impacted by an ordinance that says 100 people or more.
I agree.
Well, but you're proposing half of your capacity though, so we're dropping to 16.
I'm sorry? Oh, it's half our fire code capacity?
If your capacity is higher because you have the other rooms and stuff.
Okay.
Exactly.
So that would be the number you would cut in half. Is that what you're saying? For instance, if it were 125 for the whole building, that's what you'd be cutting in half.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so our capacity would be, higher than that. That's a number I don't want to comment, just don't have.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Rob, anything to add?
No, I mean, I think that it's workable if you wanted to do half of the fire capacity of the building. Again, I don't want us to get in a situation, I'm very sensitive to this idea that we're not going to improve things by simply shutting down South Kingstown businesses if folks are just going to flock to Charlestown or Narragansett. That's not going to improve public health dramatically, and it's not going to help South Kingstown. I think we do need to have the flexibility to go lower if the experts are saying we need to go lower. We're already hearing that noise, and I think that the likelihood of that happening in the next few days and weeks is great. This will not prevent us from doing that, but it also doesn't start us there.
All right, so I think my amendment to this would be half the fire capacity for a maximum of 100 people up until when or if the governor alters that number, right? So we would still take our directive from the state, which right now is 100. We're recommending 100 people. But if tomorrow, if she alters that to 25, then I think we need to follow her directive because we all need to do this together.
I think that's it. I think it gives Rob the authority to adjust.
I think you can, I think it's in
Okay.
the fourth clause.
All right? Then my amendment to the ordinance would be just the half the fire capacity up to a maximum of 100.
I'm going to second that.
I'll second that. All right. We have a motion and a second. Discussion on this amendment?
No. I want to agree to that notion, but I can't, unfortunately. I think that we have to listen to the medical director and to our EMS department.
And this motion is just to amend the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
I can sympathize with that, Brian. Just don't think we're going to get to the 10 limitation today. From what I'm hearing from the council, so I think that this is an important step in the right comments on this amendment? All right, well, then we can call a special, all in favor of amending the ordinance so that it says, license holders are restricted from serving or gathering more than one half, their, allotted,
Fire code
capacity, or 100 patrons.
up to.
Or up to 100 patrons at a time. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All right, I count 3 to 2, that motion carries. I voted yes.
You have 3 yeses. Oh, it's me. No, I just don't hear you.
All right, now, back to the ordinance as a whole. Are there any other amendments that you can see? All right, do I hear a motion on this declaration?
Make a motion to enact the ordinance with the amendments as considered.
Second.
So moved. Discussion on the ordinance as a whole.
So I won't be voting in favor of the ordinance for a few reasons. One is, I know that if you're gonna be wrong about something like this, you should be wrong on the side of being careful. However, I think, this meeting was called a little bit quickly. I mean, you got a text at about 1 o'clock this afternoon and, reacted pretty quickly, and I think that is something that we could have done Monday or Tuesday of this week and not risk too much and have much more public participation with more notice. Or even Wednesday to make the 72-hour. My personal feeling is that it's a little bit of overreach. I think that the conditions that are in place now, especially in the hospitality industry, a lot of what we're proposing here is already being taken care of. And I think that things are self-leveling here. Again, if I'm wrong, that's potential. I want to point out to staff that I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Craig, I appreciate your input and public safety officials. I just feel strongly that this is a little bit of overreach, a little bit of a knee-jerk, and I think my gut, and I don't have the governor's staff, I don't have the federal staff, but my gut is that it's sort of a knee-jerk and that we're reacting to something. There are other episodes, other instances that happen that are this or the potential to be worse than this, that we haven't taken this kind of action. Again, that's just my 2 cents, and that's why we have 5 seats.
I agree about the 5 seats, and Joe, I respect everyone's opinion up here. I don't feel there was any knee-jerk reaction. I think that the community has been long looking for some direction, and after the closure of the schools on Friday, I felt that the governor should have closed the daycares at that point as well. But then today she closed it. Well, she's suggesting that you close and not open if you're a daycare. So this is a constant moving situation that we have, and I'm sure that we're going to see more direction at the federal level and at the state level. So I'm confident of that. I personally think that, and I still think that we should limit social interaction as much as possible, and I would still support the number of 10. Sure.
The medical director informed me that he's pretty sure the days will be a statewide quarantine for all public businesses. That's his opinion, within days.
Within a day?
Within days, yes.
And we would, under this ordinance, institute that as well.
Right, but I think we want to be ahead of the curve. And I'll take my direction from the state, but at the same time, I think if we can do something quicker, because we're able to in our town, then we should. I understand. I just, I just happen to not agree.
Anything to add, Rick? I think, this is unprecedented, and I can see how it seems like an overreaction. I think part of the problem is if we overreact strongly enough, and that's what they want us to do, and really shut down as much as possible, that's when we'll be the most effective and really hopefully nip this in the bud. And it looks like it was never necessary to take drastic action. We've seen in countries like Italy how bad this virus is. I don't think there's any reason to think that the United States is exceptional in its susceptibleness to this virus and the damage it can cause. So we got to do something to try and protect our elderly in large part. And so I think that this ordinance, which was called for by the governor's office, is in keeping with the response that we're seeing around the state and around the country. And we know that it's probably going to be getting more stringent as we go. So I will vote for this ordinance as is. I appreciate your changes that I think will make it better. And I want to thank folks for coming in today to address this matter. And I want to thank you who were able to get here on short notice and give us your opinions.
One more question, Lisa. Just clarification on the sunsets on April 15th unless we take further action.
That's correct. April 15th, or a ordinance terminating this emergency order.
Extended order. Right. Adjust.
I just have one more thing to add, and that's, I hope 2 weeks from now, everybody's pointing a finger at me and saying you didn't need to do anything. I really hope so. So, yeah.
I'm in complete agreement with you on that, Deb. And I hear what you're saying about protecting our elderly, we have to protect everyone in our community.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of this ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
And by a vote of 3 to 2, this ordinance is enacted. That brings us to the end of today's agenda.
Can we, can I ask a question? Are we going to still be meeting tomorrow in public?
We have tomorrow night, we have scheduled the preliminary budget adoption. I would recommend that we continue with that. There hasn't been a suspension of the state requirements around budgeting. Municipal finance still is going to need our preliminarily adopted budget to review. I would suggest that we will try to figure out how to ensure that the public has an opportunity to participate and watch without necessarily having everybody elbow to elbow.
So our capacity, right there above that gentleman's head says 173, so our capacity will be half that tomorrow evening.
We're not operating under a license, but we'll do that.
By example.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Rob, could you reach out to the Department of Health tomorrow and ask that question, please, regarding council meetings and things of that nature?
Can I just ask one question on enforcement, just so we know in the restaurant, when we go in the restaurant in town, who's going to be in charge of enforcement? Fire marshal, police?
The police.
Okay. And how are you guys planning to get word out to everybody? Is this ordinance enacted for tonight or tomorrow?
It's enacted immediately.
Okay. Just trying to, so there's clarification so people aren't caught off guard.
Yeah, so, Chief?
Joe Jager, Police Chief. I have a question on the enforcement as well. I'm not certain how we will enforce it. It would be a maximum of 100 people, regardless of where you are. More than 100 would not be allowed.
That's correct. So Chief, your guys can, if we have suspicion that we've got a problem somewhere, you guys can go in, you can look at the placard on the wall, see what the fire capacity is, and count. That's going to be it. But I mean, to be honest with you, the way that I imagine the police, who are always responsible and careful, and try to make these things painless for everybody that can be. What I imagine is, walking through a room, they're gonna say, there's too many folks in here. Can we figure out how to get this room emptied? Because it's not, down to the capacity that's appropriate.
I agree, I wouldn't anticipate that. I know most of the restaurant owners here, and they've always been cooperative, so I would assume that the same would be true with this ordinance. But I was a little unclear, we don't have an enforcement, anything about enforcement at the end of this ordinance. I'm just curious. We have to have something that says,
In the fifth paragraph, we've got a catch-all that allows for taking whatever action is deemed necessary. Enforcement is deemed necessary. So the police are going to have to go to a place where we believe that we have a problem and notify the owner of the problem and have them engage in remedial action.
no monetary sanction?
There's no monetary sanction.
And like I say, I know they will all be cooperative. Probably the way we would handle this is we would just send an officer in if it looks like there's too large a crowd and ask that they reduce the crowd. That's as far as.
Unless we run into a problem, that's as far as I anticipate we're gonna have to go.
This way, I just don't want that, what I usually tell my officer.
If we run into, a problem, if we've got a belligerent or a conflict, we'll have to address that when we get there. We're going to have to enforce these numbers, and we're gonna have to enforce these numbers if they go lower as we go.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. So we were having a little bit of a discussion about holding council meetings. I think that I'd like to discuss that a little more, but I think we should add it to the agenda if you want to do that.
I'll make the motion to add discussion of council meetings to the agenda.
So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, so, Brian, you were suggesting
That the town manager reach out tomorrow morning to Rhode Island Department of Health for guidance on that.
Craig Stanley's already done so, we should know by the end of today.
Great.
And if it comes to it, is there a way to do remote meetings for the council, or?
So the governor has indicated that she is drafting an executive order that would allow for telephonic and electronic meetings, but it has not been executed at this point. We are anticipating that order tomorrow, but it requires modification of the Open Meetings Act, and the executive order is being crafted so that it does, so that it honors the Open Meetings Act to the fullest extent possible.
And what we don't want to do is have a situation where we're not allowing as many people that want to be involved in that discussion tomorrow, not be able to attend, or having too many people in the room.
So one of the things that we can do and have done is let folks know that they can email their comments into the council. If they're short, we promise that those might be read into the record. If they're long, obviously they become part of the record, but it would be difficult to read a 6-page email on any subject. But that sort of communication, even absent a change or an executive order allowing telephonic communication, that we can do. We can accept it as part of the record because we take written testimony.
Do you have something to add on this topic?
The manager covered it regarding the changes anticipated to the OMA.
I think I see a gentleman who wants to speak. So our agendas typically will have items for other matters of interest and concern. We don't have an agenda in front of us, but if somebody wanted to make a motion to add that.
I'll make a motion to add other matters of concern to the agenda.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. I already said my name before, just in case, just wanted to know, with this not stating a penalty or anything, I want to know how it's going to be enforced fairly. If it's somebody like Subway who has a capacity of 12 people, and say some of our larger people here who have a couple hundred capacity, I don't know how it's going to be enforced fairly. If the police are going to be receiving calls all day from private businesses, licensees, gyms that people think they still have 25 people at. How does this apply to the Fourth Amendment of search and seizure, which is when you have the police involved with private businesses and locked doors? How are they allowed to enforce to find out how many people are inside?
So it's obviously one of the great challenges when you're dealing with emergency ordinances and states of
Did you
emergency.
suspend the Fourth Amendment?
No, the Fourth Amendment has not been suspended, and trying to make sure that you're exercising your police power to protect the public health within the constitutional constraints that we all operate under and must continue to operate under is a challenge.
Because I just think personally, the police are going to do an amazing job here. They already do, but now you're going to put all our first responders at risk by having them respond to crowded rooms without the quote. They don't have adequate protection. We didn't give our police force extra masks, so you're putting our first responders who are needed later in an emergency. You're going to send them first to get sick to these places where we're going to enforce these limits. I just am curious to how the fire marshal is not in charge like normal for capacity and how you enforce that equally and honestly amongst every business fairly in South Kingstown, as opposed to just these people getting scrutinized daily because the Muse has 90 people in it. People are calling the police because they think they see 110 people there. I just want to know how this is going to not cause undue stress to our police department and our first responders, not putting them at risk.
So you're exactly right. This is a challenge for everyone involved. It is not going to be an easy thing for us to ask our police officers, or for that matter, the fire marshal, who we will be working with, we must be working with, our EMTs. Everyone involved here is going to be doing things that are out of the ordinary.
Would it be possible to pass an ordinance that gave our first responders added equipment for when they were forced to do these inspections of private places?
Unfortunately, what we are finding with this crisis is that there isn't adequate personal protection available. There aren't enough
gloves and masks.
There aren't enough masks to go around. There aren't enough respirators. There aren't enough. If our system becomes overwhelmed, and that's what we're trying to stop, we're not going to be able to deal with all of the critical pneumonia cases in the hospitals. We're trying to stop that. Our officers have some masks, and we're gonna try to make sure that we're doing the best we can with what we've got. But we are dealing with a worldwide pandemic that threatens the health and well-being of everyone in this community and everyone in the nation.
Swine flu affected 50 million Americans, and South Kingstown didn't close a single business.
This is different.
Whether
Could I ask for medical references to what you're speaking of? Because not one of us, I think me or anybody here is a doctor.
We also did get opinions from our medical director, so I mean.
Is he a doctor?
Yes.
Medical doctor is a medical doctor.
Yes. You're exactly right. I mean, I'm not a medical doctor. All I can do is use the information that's being provided to us by the medical community.
Italy has the highest population of elderly folks in the world, so when you mentioned what's happening in Italy, well, this is America, that's not happening the same. We closed our border to China immediately.
We have a population that's approximately 33 to 36% elderly in South Kingstown. We have a high elderly population here.
We've had 20 contracted cases in Rhode Island. South Kingstown's seen over 50 fentanyl deaths in a year. I'd love to see this response to something that warrants it instead of closing private businesses that are going to be affected, that can't repair their businesses. These people go out of business, the Muse is gone. They go out of business, they're gone. If Narragansett doesn't close their businesses, I'm going to Narragansett. The governor has said she wants everybody at home for the next 2 weeks. I asked this council, have every single one of you been home exactly 24 hours a day unless it's been critical?
Yes.
So far. But everybody's
Yes.
approach it differently, sir.
I see you all out in town. We're all out right now. If this was a true emergency, there wouldn't be 10 of us, 15 of us in this room. We would have suspended anything.
We have, in order to do anything, we have to be in public unless we were to change something or have authorization by the government.
You know how many restaurants are in South Kingstown? How many owners are represented here? 4? 4 restaurants are represented right here. I found out about this from Facebook post half an hour ago. I think you guys did an inadequate job in letting everybody in town know to voice their opinions. I also think pandemic and paranoia are 2 different things. Yes, we have a pandemic, wash your hands, but I don't think we have a reason to cause everybody in town to panic, close down our stores, and wait for the National Guard to start handing out food lines. That's what I just think.
That Facebook post originated from a Facebook post from us to make sure that the public had the best possible notice. It is an emergency meeting.
You guys have every business's phone number. You could have called
Yeah, I suppose we could have.
them. There's 50 of them. So call them right now in 5 minutes.
I suppose we could have.
This was a little rushed. I think I see a lot of scared people up here, and I think that sends a message to everybody in this town that it's time to panic.
I have to disagree. I don't think we're scared. I think we're trying to prevent something that we have control over now before we do not have control over it.
So why did South Kingston wait for the governor to close the schools instead of closing them a month ago when we knew we had our first case?
It's a perfectly good question, but I don't think we're going to get to the bottom of it today, sir. And I would say,
I came up here and asked about the unenforceability of this act. If I keep my doors closed, how do the police come in to enforce your bill?
as the case is with many ordinances.
So we all came here for a totally unenforceable waste of time.
No, that's absolutely not a true statement. This
That's what it appears to be.
This license has revoked, this ordinance has revoked a set of licenses and has put a condition on all licensees in the town that is enforceable. They are businesses, and if they keep their doors closed, one of the objectives of responding to the pandemic has been met.
I mean, I personally closed my business by choice. I think it was the responsible thing to do. But I think restaurants and a lot of these places, they have an obligation, to the town that they're in. They want to be here. They want to do business, I don't think the bowling alley needs to be having bowling. But I think if Harry wants to offer every South Kingstown student a school lunch, I think that's an honorable thing. And I think half these guys are standing up more than anybody in this town has. So I think these guys should be applauded for what they've actually done. And I think this just doesn't really do much. It's not going to be enforced fairly. Subway has a capacity of 10. So, thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, I think that brings us to the end of the agenda.
Do you have something in?
If I may, I do want to speak to public communication, if I may.
Sure.
About a week ago, the town created a page on its website, accessible from the homepage through either there's an alert at the top or a link from the bottom of the page specific to COVID-19. We are updating that every day as needed. It does link to state and local resources, the CDC, the Rhode Island Department of Health, press releases from the governor. We're trying to create as much awareness as we can. Any local press releases that we have issued, we've already issued 2 last week. I would anticipate that this evening we would put something out to the community as well in a press release regarding the ordinance. We're trying to get as much word out as we can, both on the web and as well as social media.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you again for coming.
Amy.
My conversation is pretty good.